I think there is this misconception that people go to counselors for advice.
I think that's really a big question, really big.
When they flip the script a little bit and look at themselves.
Most important thing is
Find something to understand, not try to find something to prove.
I would say,
I talked to a number of international counselors on what helps people move forward in life, and the ideas they shared are a lot more simpler than you think. And guess what? You can use those ideas also. Stay tuned to the end of the video where we have a special guest appearance by a Canadian counselor, and I think what that counselor has to say is very good.
But what I found that was really helpful for people is when they flip the script a little bit and look at themselves. I have this activity I do with a lot of my clients where we create a circle with different kind of pie pieces to the circle, and I have them evaluate how do you feel about yourself vocationally? How do you And when I say feel about yourself, are you satisfied and fulfilled vocationally? Are you satisfied and fulfilled in a relationship? First of all, it helps us understand you're actually doing, for example, let's say you're doing great vocationally. It helps you contextualize, maybe I'm really disappointed in relationships. That's not my whole life. I'm thriving in vocationally, or I'm thriving in my physical, I work hard on my body and I eat nutritiously, and so I'm doing well. So it helps people kind of contextualize, just because one area of your life or 4 areas of your life are really disappointing, you have these other areas that you have a lot of strengths and that you have invested in and you're doing well. So it kind of pulls the shame out of it and helps you look at yourself holistically, so that then in therapy, we can really work on these areas from a constructive, curious mindset. And use the strengths in the areas that are going well to support you in the areas that you want to grow in.
The real change actually happens when people or when the kids feel like they're seen. As adults, I think we tend to educate or teach the children do the right thing without understanding them first. And a lot of time when we argue, we don't really talk to that person. We just try to prove that we are right. So normally I would just advise our client that next time when argument occurs, try to find something to learn. Find something to understand, not try to find something to prove.
That kind of connects people to their inner experience would be very helpful, because I think there is this misconception that people go to counselors for advice. And I just want to say that's not necessarily the case. They, it's yes, sometimes clients come to us for a quick problem solution, but there is no such a thing. I think what it's helpful is to gain first perspective, insight to themselves. Without that awareness, they cannot take steps, and they don't even know, where are they going? Where are they moving to? And when it comes to, depends on obviously on the case, stories, for example. Stories are great when it comes to really getting to know our inner psyche, that right side of the brain. Actually, wouldn't necessarily be sharing of the stories, but we would pick different myths or fairy tales from childhood. So it would be based on the Carl Jung archetypes, and then I would retell the story, and then I would ask about the images that kind of are most vivid for them, the sensations in their body as they were listening to the stories, because we would want to try to connect, maybe leave that intellect to the side, and then connect with that feeling part of the brain where the memories are stored. Where the processing of information is taking place as well. Most of the time we think with our intellect, because that's how we learn at school, that's what's useful. But in order to connect with that inner world, that's not enough. And that's when, through storytelling in a community, that emotional part is brought to life.
we help people to reflect, to express themselves, and also to build up their inner strength and skills they need in order to reach the goal they want to have. Okay. I work with children. If they want to talk, I will talk, right?
Okay.
But then sometimes I feel like maybe talking kind of block their way to express something deeper. Okay. So we will switch to play. Oh. I do have a certain feeling that sometimes doing nothing for a while is the best solution. Okay. We don't try to push that much, but sometimes we do need to push. Okay. Right. And then for like maybe people with more emotional difficulties like anxiety and depression, also I will switch between cognitive process versus like focusing on emotional process.
Okay. As counselors, we cannot help our client to make decisions. We just try to guide them to find a way that is most suitable for them. So I would say self-compassion comes from self-correction. I think for child, if we want to parent our child in a different way, we also need to connect with them first before critic. So we can be curious about ourselves, about our children, about our husband or wife before being criticized. More like, oh, if I feel mad when he said that, why I feel so mad at this point? What's my need? What triggered me? Is my past experiences? Is like their behavioral pattern remind me of my parents? Or maybe some traumatic experience that I am not aware of.
In Germany, we often talk about some different types and schools of therapy. And I think the most important thing is the relationship. Because so it doesn't usually matter if it's a behavioristic therapist or dynamic. The most important thing is that you feel secure in the therapy, and if you feel secure and safe, then you can change some things, and then it doesn't matter what kind of school the therapist did learn. But of course, for some special mental issues, it's good to have this or this kind of. The main thing is the relationship.
Self-awareness people have, or the level of responsibility they're willing to take. You know, that, of course, what often happens is that all of us like to blame the other person because she did that or he did that, and that might be the fact. What's missing is what's my role, or how do I contribute? So that's one of the fundamental things that I'm interested in steering people towards, is a willingness and ability to see themselves and to own their own foibles, and not just immediately want to bring it back to the other person, but just sit with that. Yeah, wow, I didn't do that so well. I was rushed, I was abrupt, and I can understand that didn't feel good for you. So that sort of self-recognition, I think, goes a long way.
Now it's my turn to talk. We heard a lot from the counselors about people looking at themselves, reflecting on themselves, trying to see some different things, some different patterns, you could say. And I agree with that 100%. And something that I do that can help people look at that to take action is journal writing. Just by writing out things in a journal, it allows the person to kind of see, you could say, those patterns that may not be helping them in life. For example, they see a pattern of, I'm always upset with people, I'm always cruel to people. And then they start to internalize that, yeah, maybe I do need to kind of look at that in my approach towards people. And also, the journal can allow them to see that perhaps they're on autopilot. In my experiences, people keep on doing the same thing again and again based on conditioning from their culture around them, from their family. And these things that they do again and again gets them the same result, which is not the result they want. So once people start to see through their journal writing, yeah, it seems to be I'm doing the same thing again and again. That's when you could say the light bulb goes off inside and they can say, maybe I need to make some changes. And for many people, they can auto-correct. And what I mean by that is once they start seeing these patterns and really seeing them, they can start to say, oh, I'm going down that road. If I go down that road, I'm going to do that kind of action. And doing that action isn't very helpful for me. This video is one of a 3-part series with these counselors. And if you haven't seen the first one, I encourage you to check it out. It talks about what the counselors actually see behind those closed doors. Check it out. See you in the next video.